First, I'd just like to make the point that we're very fortunate that His Majesty has allowed us to use Buckingham Palace for this event. And her bravery was inspirational, extraordinary. She received the George Cross. She would never accept any recognition for her special contribution without reminding us that she was the face of a much wider body of operations, made possible by a network of dedicated teams behind the scenes.
She's always been a quiet force, a woman who commands respect without seeking it. Yet on June 14, 2025, at the Trooping the Color Parade, Princess Anne didn't just command the stage, she rewrote the rules of royal hierarchy. The trotting hooves, the gleaming uniforms, the fluttering banners, these were more than pageantry that day. They became the backdrop to a shockwave that rippled through Buckingham Palace, London, and across the globe. Anne, the monarchy's most accomplished equestrian, guided her horse Noble with precision, her every movement measured, unflappable, a living emblem of authority. The crowd held its collective breath as the Coldstream Guards trooped their king's color in solemn pride, marking 375 years of unwavering service. But then came the moment that would eclipse centuries of tradition. Princess Anne, rising in her stirrups, her voice cutting clear through the ceremonial drums, declared Catherine, Princess of Wales, the Marshal of the monarch's honor. It was a title never before seen, a role never imagined, a seismic shift in the monarchy's public narrative. Spectators gasped, royal commentators whispered. Behind palace walls, the ripple of intrigue began. Catherine, radiant in cream, stepped forward with poise, flanked by her children. For the first time, the world saw her not as a figurehead, not as a future queen consort, but as a central pillar in the monarchy's evolving story. Prince George flashed his gap-toothed grin, Charlotte mirrored her mother's elegance, and little Louis strode forward with the confidence of a future royal in the making. The family tableau set against the red, white, and blue of the parade was stunning, but the real drama had only begun.
Princess Anne's choice wasn't ceremonial, it was strategic. Sources close to Buckingham Palace reveal that Queen Camilla was not consulted, a move that subtly shifted the power dynamics. While the crowd cheered, insiders noted tension behind the scenes. Anne had quietly recognized what few others could see. Catherine embodied the resilience, grace, and leadership needed to carry the monarchy into a modern era. Her cancer remission, announced just 5 months prior, had only amplified her aura of strength, showing a woman who had faced adversity and returned unbowed. Trooping the Color, a tradition spanning over 260 years, had always been about the pageantry and precision of the household division. But on that sunlit day, it became a stage for a monarchy in transition. With King Charles III in his carriage due to ongoing health concerns, Anne, William, and Edward rode their horses in full ceremonial splendor, their medals catching the sunlight. Yet all eyes returned to Catherine, whose poised acceptance signaled that the monarchy's future had a new protagonist. This was not a gesture, it was a declaration. And the implications would be felt far beyond the parade grounds.
Princess Anne's choice wasn't ceremonial, it was strategic. Sources close to Buckingham Palace reveal that Queen Camilla was not consulted, a move that subtly shifted the power dynamics. While the crowd cheered, insiders noted tension behind the scenes. Anne had quietly recognized what few others could see. Catherine embodied the resilience, grace, and leadership needed to carry the monarchy into a modern era. Her cancer remission, announced just 5 months prior, had only amplified her aura of strength, showing a woman who had faced adversity and returned unbowed. Trooping the Color, a tradition spanning over 260 years, had always been about the pageantry and precision of the household division. But on that sunlit day, it became a stage for a monarchy in transition. With King Charles III in his carriage due to ongoing health concerns, Anne, William, and Edward rode their horses in full ceremonial splendor, their medals catching the sunlight. Yet all eyes returned to Catherine, whose poised acceptance signaled that the monarchy's future had a new protagonist. This was not a gesture, it was a declaration, and the implications would be felt far beyond the parade grounds. As the Coldstream Guards lowered their color in solemn tribute, the hush that fell across Horse Guards Parade was more than respect, it was anticipation. Every eye, every camera lens, every whispered comment among the crowd seemed to ask the same question: what just happened? Princess Anne had done more than honor tradition. She had created a new royal hierarchy in plain sight. Catherine, standing beside King Charles, absorbed the weight of the moment with a quiet grace that left the nation in awe. Her cream Amelia Wickstead coat caught the sunlight, reflecting not just elegance but authority, an unspoken signal that she was ready to step fully into leadership. For years, royal watchers had speculated about Catherine's influence behind the scenes. Her commitment to early childhood initiatives, mental health programs, and trauma recovery had always been visible in subtle, quiet ways. She didn't seek headlines, she created impact. Princess Anne recognized that rare combination of resilience and authenticity, and in a move that shocked many, she positioned Catherine not just as a supporter of the monarchy, but as a co-architect of its ceremonial and public future. The title of Marshal of the Monarch's Honor was symbolic, yes, but its implications were profound.
Meanwhile, tension simmered elsewhere in the royal fold. Queen Camilla, relegated to a secondary carriage, was visibly sidelined during the parade, sparking murmurs about palace fractures. Loyalists whispered of frustration. Insiders speculated on strategy. Anne's unilateral decision to elevate Catherine bypassed the traditional channels, signaling that the monarchy's evolution was now guided by merit and trust, not protocol alone. For those accustomed to calculated diplomacy, the boldness of the move was breathtaking. Prince William, riding tall as Colonel of the Welsh Guards, cast a subtle but meaningful glance at Catherine. In that moment, the partnership of the Wales family became unmistakable. This was more than ceremony, it was a public declaration of alignment. Their children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, reflected the unity and poise of their parents, already absorbing lessons of duty, resilience, and the power of understated authority. Observers noted Charlotte's mirrored gestures and George's confident salute, symbols of a next generation being groomed for responsibility under the watchful eyes of Anne and their parents. The broader significance of Catherine's appointment extended beyond the palace gates. As Marshal of the Monarch's Honor, she was now entrusted with representing the crown in ceremonial salutes to the regiments of the household division. Every parade, every formal ceremony, every salute would now be imbued with her presence and influence, redefining the monarchy's image in the public eye. Where King Charles relied on tradition and his courage, Catherine brought energy, visibility, and a modern sensibility that bridged royal legacy and contemporary expectations. Observers across the globe, from royal commentators to casual fans, were quick to note the contrast. A monarchy steeped in centuries of tradition had chosen innovation and trust over hierarchy and habit. Anne's equestrian mastery was more than showmanship. It was a metaphor for the control and strategy behind her decision. With each steady command of her horse, she signaled not just skill, but authority, foresight, and mentorship. Catherine had passed the ultimate test of presence under pressure, and the world had watched her rise, silent but undeniable. The moment Catherine accepted the title of Marshal of the Monarch's Honor was just the beginning. Behind palace doors, the true weight of her new responsibilities began to settle.
It wasn't ceremonial pomp that defined this role. It was strategy, leadership, and unyielding public scrutiny. Overnight, Catherine's calendar transformed. Meetings with regiment commanders, briefings on charitable engagements, and discussions on ceremonial protocols became routine. Every action, every decision was now a statement of capability. Royal insiders reveal that Anne's choice had been calculated down to the last detail. She saw in Catherine the rare ability to command respect without domination, to lead with empathy without sacrificing authority. The new role would test Catherine's stamina, patience, and political acumen. While the public celebrated the elegance and symbolism of the moment, palace staff braced for the intensity of scrutiny that would inevitably follow. Questions circulated. Could Catherine maintain the balance of family, public life, and this unprecedented position? Would traditionalists within the royal household resist the change? Camilla's subtle sidelining did not go unnoticed. The queen consort, long skilled in navigating palace dynamics, recognized that Catherine's ascent could shift influence away from her own sphere. Courtiers whispered of quiet campaigns to challenge decisions, of careful positioning to maintain appearances while testing loyalties. But Catherine's approach was deliberate. Observe, listen, and act with consistency. She didn't engage in palace whispers or public rebuttals. Instead, she let her actions speak. Her precise salute, her calm demeanor, and her visible engagement with the regiments conveyed more authority than words ever could. Meanwhile, the public response amplified her rise. Across social media and news outlets, Catherine's poised salute and visible connection with the troops became viral. Commentators praised her ability to embody the monarchy's values while remaining approachable, authentic, and resolute. Stories emerged of her quiet attention to soldiers' families, of her visits to charitable institutions linked to the household division. Every gesture reinforced the perception that Catherine was not just performing a role, she was living it. The juxtaposition of Catherine's rise and Camilla's quiet retreat created an invisible power map within the palace. Anne, ever the tactician, had engineered this outcome. Elevate a successor who could unify tradition with progress, maintain ceremonial integrity, and connect meaningfully with both military institutions and the public. The implications were clear. Catherine's role was no longer symbolic. She was a linchpin of the monarchy's future, a living bridge between heritage and modernization. At the same time, the children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, stood as living proof of continuity and stability. Their coordinated presence on the balcony, their confident waves, and their mirrored gestures signaled that the Wales family was not just stepping into ceremonial duties, they were shaping the monarchy's next generation. Royal commentators noted how Charlotte's poise reflected her mother's elegance, suggesting that the monarchy's legacy of duty and composure was being instilled early. For Catherine, the day's triumph was tempered by awareness. This was not a role that offered applause or accolades. Every engagement carried responsibility. Every misstep could be amplified. But for those closest to her, the Duchess of Wales demonstrated steadfast resilience, relying on the mentorship and guidance of Princess Anne. Their bond, forged over years of shared equestrian practice and public service, became a silent support system in a landscape defined by tradition, politics, and public expectation. As evening fell over London and the Red Arrow's trails faded from the skyline, one truth became evident. Catherine had moved from observer to central actor, and the monarchy's future was quietly but unmistakably shifting. Anne's strategy had worked. Her choice, deliberate and bold, had established a new precedent for leadership within the royal family, one based not solely on title or inheritance, but on merit, trust, and the ability to inspire. With Catherine firmly installed as Marshal of the monarch's honor, the palace entered a period of delicate recalibration. Behind the gilded walls, the atmosphere was a mix of admiration, apprehension, and quiet maneuvering. Loyalists to Queen Camilla whispered concerns about precedent and protocol, while traditionalists debated whether the younger generation could truly sustain the monarchy's gravitas. Yet Catherine, undeterred, continued her duties with precision, empathy, and unwavering poise. Her first weeks were a masterclass in balancing visibility and influence. She attended regiment briefings, oversaw ceremonial planning, and engaged with charitable institutions tied to the household division. Unlike previous royals, she didn't rely on formal speeches alone. Catherine listened intently, asked probing questions, and ensured her actions reflected genuine concern, earning trust among soldiers, officers, and staff alike. This approach gradually neutralized whispers of doubt. Observers noted how her calm decisiveness contrasted with the subtle panic among factions resistant to change. Meanwhile, Camilla's position grew increasingly symbolic. Though she maintained public appearances and patronages, insiders reveal she had little input into strategic ceremonial decisions. The subtle demotion at Trooping the Color was not forgotten. Courtiers report quiet frustration and tension as she navigated her diminished influence. Yet Catherine's approach was never combative. She led with humility, letting her competence speak louder than confrontation, a stark contrast to palace politics that often relied on assertion over results. Public perception reinforced Catherine's ascent. Social media posts, news coverage, and viral photographs highlighted her authentic engagement with both military personnel and civilians. Moments such as kneeling to speak with young cadets or attentively listening to officers' concerns resonated deeply with a public increasingly skeptical of ceremonial formalities. The Duchess's ability to connect with people without seeking the spotlight amplified her authority, turning public admiration into a strategic asset for the monarchy. Anne's mentorship remained a guiding force. The Princess Royal, quietly observing from the sidelines, provided advice, historical context, and tactical guidance, but never overshadowed Catherine's new role. Their equestrian bond, coupled with a shared understanding of duty, created a mentorship that blended tradition with modern leadership. Anne's strategy was clear. Catherine must rise fully, independently, yet grounded in the monarchy's legacy. The children of the Wales family also became symbols of continuity and stability. George, Charlotte, and Louis's coordinated presence at events, particularly their composure during balcony appearances, reflected both parental guidance and an early training in ceremonial responsibilities. Charlotte's elegance, mirroring her mother's poise, was noted repeatedly by royal commentators as a signal that future generations were being prepared for public service with intent and care. Even as Catherine thrived in her new role, subtle palace tensions persisted. Advisors aligned with Camilla attempted minor interventions, rescheduling meetings, questioning ceremonial decisions, and circulating whispers of overreach. Yet Catherine's steady focus and measured responses deflected potential crises before they could escalate. Every visit, every salute, and every engagement became a calculated reinforcement of her authority, gradually solidifying her position as a central figure in the monarchy's evolving structure. As autumn approached, Catherine's role as Marshal of the Monarch's Honor began to show its full impact. The subtle shift at Trooping the Color was no longer just symbolic. It had reshaped the palace hierarchy and public perception alike. Catherine now commanded respect through action rather than title, and every ceremonial appearance reinforced her credibility. Royal watchers noted that her once peripheral presence had transformed into a cornerstone of the monarchy's public identity. Her duties extended beyond military ceremonies. She oversaw charity initiatives tied to the regiments, coordinated with heads of historical institutions, and personally engaged with families of service members. These actions were carefully measured, highly visible, yet deeply personal, signaling that Catherine's leadership style was both deliberate and empathetic. She was proving that royal influence could be wielded with integrity, fostering trust rather than fear. Meanwhile, the ripple effects of Anne's decision continued to challenge palace norms. Queen Camilla, while maintaining her public composure, quietly recalibrated her approach. Insiders describe a series of strategic retreats in which Camilla focused on niche patronages and diplomatic appearances, recognizing that Catherine now occupied the central ceremonial and symbolic roles she had once sought. The subtle tension between the two royal women became a defining narrative of the monarchy's evolving internal dynamics. Catherine's growing prominence also redefined the monarchy's image globally. International observers and media outlets praised her poise and authenticity, noting that her actions reinforced a modern monarchy grounded in duty, compassion, and adaptability. Diplomatic circles reported that foreign military and political leaders now saw Catherine as a figure capable of representing the crown with authority and sensitivity, a rare combination that strengthened Britain's soft power abroad. Back at home, the Wales children continued to embody the monarchy's next generation. George, Charlotte, and Louis's coordinated appearances, confident waves, and visible understanding of protocol reflected the careful guidance they received from their parents. Charlotte's poised manner, in particular, hinted at a future in which she could play a stabilizing role within royal life, following in her mother's footsteps of blending relatability with responsibility. Anne's presence, though more subtle than during Trooping the Color, remained influential. Private guidance, discreet advice, and shared wisdom ensured Catherine's ascent remained aligned with both tradition and strategic foresight. Anne's mentorship was less about oversight and more about empowering Catherine to act decisively while honoring the monarchy's legacy, a legacy Anne had spent decades safeguarding. Public response solidified Catherine's position further.